regular session on Wednesday, April 9th, 2014, in the auditorium at East High School, 1001 Atkins Street, at 6:00 p.m. by request of the President, John C. Harkins.
Roll call.
Mr. Brzezinski? Here. Mr. Cassillo?
Here.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Here.
Mrs. McNair?
Here.
Mr. Petrunger?
Here.
Ms. Shenley?
Here.
Mr. Spagel?
Here.
Mrs. Alexandrovich?
Here.
Mr. Harkins?
Here. Before I call for the introduction of our pledge leader tonight, it's been our custom to call attention to the passage of former employees and associates of the school district and students, et cetera, who've passed away. And one of them hit particularly close to home in the last few days, and that's Dave Cranking. He passed away on April 4th, served the district in many capacities, finishing with the, he was in August of 2001, principal at Wayne. In 2013, he was director of career and technical education. He was the director of alternative education for a time. Prior to that, he originally started as a teacher at Gridley Middle School in 1977. He died all too young, and it's all too sudden, and he's very much going to be missed, and he's very dear to many school district students and staff. So when we have the Pledge of Allegiance and then have our moment of silence, would everyone please reflect on Dave and his contribution, and we offer our sympathies to his family. With that, our pledge will be led by Michael Outlaw. He's a junior. He's a fifth grade student at Lincoln Elementary School, and Mrs. Carla Johnson, the principal there, will introduce him, followed by the pledge and a moment of silence.
President Harkins, members of the board, Superintendent Bantams, good evening. It is my privilege to introduce a fifth grade student at Lincoln Elementary School, Michael Outlaw. He was born August 16, 2003. He is the proud son of Mr. Michael and Danielle Outlaw, who's here with us today. He has one brother, Malik, two sisters, Michaela and Malia Outlaw. He loves math and science. His favorite subject is math. Michael is currently receiving all A's in all subjects. He's a very intelligent young man. I wish I could keep him to 12th grade. I said, Michael, what are your personal hobbies? What do you love to do? He said, I love to eat my mother's good cooking. I like to play golf, play video games, and watch a little TV. His future plans are to attend Edinburgh University. I want him to change his major, although I'll accept it. His first choice is to be a pro golfer. His second choice is to be a police officer. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Outlaw.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now he will say the Lincoln School Pledge.
I am kind and respectful. There is nobody like me. Intelligent is who I am and who I strive to be. As I climb the ladder of success toward the university to obtain my degree, I promise to continue my education to be the best me that I can be.
Thank you.
And now a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Michael, if you'll come around this way and shake hands with us, we'd all like to meet you.
Congratulations, good job. You did a great job. I like that pledge.
Good job, Michael. We have a new student representative with us for tonight's meeting and the May meeting, and she is Kiana Morgan, the daughter of Dwight and Melita Morgan. She is an outstanding student and role model for her peers. She is a representative of what students in urban education can achieve with hard work and dedication. She is poised to be class valedictorian with a GPA of 4.39. She is currently enrolled in AP courses and dual enrollment courses at Gannon University and was recently accepted to Chatham University. She has been recognized for her achievements by the Erie chapter of the Sons of the American Revolution, which honors outstanding seniors, who by their academic achievements and social interactions have demonstrated leadership among their peers. Her career goal is to become a neurosurgeon. She is a dedicated, responsible student who is motivated and is a member of the GO College program. No student can be more deserving of being recognized for their achievements than Kiana. Kiana is from Strong Vincent. Kiana, would you like to say anything to us or to the public now or in the future?
I'm honored to be here representing Strong Vincent, and thank you for all your praise.
Comes from all of us, and you deserve it. We had several executive sessions. We had 2 executive sessions since our last meeting. On April 2nd, we met at the Barker Center from 5:38 p.m. to 6:49 p.m., and also that evening later from 8:34 to 9:09 p.m. regarding negotiations and legal matters. This evening, we met an executive session in the library of East High School from 5:05 p.m. till 5:41 p.m. regarding negotiations and legal matters. Next item of business is a hearing of citizens. Persons desiring to speak for 5 minutes must have submitted their request in writing to the Secretary's office at least 1 week prior to the meeting, and all others will have 3 minutes. We have 2 people who requested 5 minutes of speaking time, first of which is Mr. William McDonald, 660 East 19th Street, speaking to the topic of Erie School District business. Mr. McDonald?
Good evening, Board. My name is McDonald. My property is 19th and Reed. I want to talk to you about that school up there on 26th Street, Sacred Heart. I've been hearing some bad reports about that school. You know, when you put out a bad report, it don't never go away, even though if you come out ahead of that bad report, you're not guilty of anything, it's still a bad taste there. I don't know just what this is all about. I mean, I'm sure it's going to come out later on. But I want to say this to the board. I read something in the paper about you want to close that school down. From what I'm hearing, they have the second highest marks among the schools, even before the public school. So if somebody's doing that good, I think they deserve some kind of consideration. I think you should get your facts. It sounds to me like somebody brought a bad report to you. I think the board is better than that. Do your homework before you assassinate somebody. You should have been going up there. I mean, that's a new school. You should have been, somebody should have been going up there trying to give them some good points and the way to go. Do it this way. Or, no, don't do it that way. Do it this way, you know. You all supposed to be professionals. But professionals don't just jump out there and label somebody like that. I mean, it's in the paper, it's on TV. I know Greg. He used to live down the street from me. You've always been a straight-up guy. He might have made some mistakes up there. Some of you all should have went up there and tried to straighten him out. Show him the right way to go. If he made some mistakes that bad for you all to, you know, just go down on him like that. That's the wrong way to go. That's the wrong way to do a thing. I just don't like it. It don't make me feel, I don't get the right feeling in my stomach. I mean, I think you all peoples were better peoples than that. Get the story first. That I'm looking at in the paper and on TV, that's not good. That's not good for the school. I think you should dig into this some more before you start talking about closing that school up. You didn't want him to have the school in the first place. Those reports you're getting, I would bet my last dollar that it's wrong. I know you've made some mistakes. You had us deep in debt there. So now, people's living in a glass house can't afford to be throwing those stones. You should be up there trying to help him, not trying to dig a hole and put him in, but if you dig a hole, you better dig two. Because Greg ain't did those things that he's being accused of. That sounds like somebody done got mad with him and ran to you all. That's the wrong way to go. Do your homework before you start digging a hole for somebody. I think it was a wonderful thing he did getting that school up there. Those kids loved Greg. When he was out there on Buffalo Road, those kids loved Greg. Out of that project, Greg did great things with those kids out there. And he's doing great things with those kids up there. You need to go up there and see what's going on. You need to go up there and see what's going on. And if he made a mistake, help him correct it.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
I want y'all to think about what I'm saying. People in glass houses cannot afford to throw stones. Thank you for your time, and y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. The next speaker who requested 5 minutes was Miss Erica Behringer, an Edinburgh student. Erica? Our topic is speaking to important information and research about sound field system uses and implementation in kindergarten, elementary school classrooms, which she learned as a result of a study she did at school. Erica?
Hi. I didn't do a study at school, but I do have lots of information.
I misunderstood. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. See how good I can multitask right here. So, my name's Erica, and I am a senior at Edinburgh University studying speech and hearing sciences. I am also a graduate of Mercyhurst University with a degree in early childhood education. I currently work at St. Benedict Center in East Coast Migrant Head Start in Erie. The main reason that I'm here is I wanted to raise some awareness about sound field systems and the benefits they offer to all children in kindergarten and elementary school classrooms. So, what is a sound field system? Essentially, it's surround sound for teachers and pupils. Research shows that excessive noise levels impair children's speech perception, reading and spelling ability, behavior, attention, and overall academic performance. Distance is one of the factors that contribute to noise levels and problems with hearing in classrooms. The sound level of the teacher's voice drops dramatically over a relatively short distance, and the students in the back of the classroom can find it difficult to hear the teacher's lessons as well as the other students. Some examples of background noise and room reverberation include traffic noise from outside, chatting classmates, clatter from chairs and tables, nearby classrooms, high ceilings, large windows, and uncarpeted floors. Some of the benefits of sound field amplification use in classrooms include better ability to discriminate words and spoken language more accurately, dramatically improves phonological skills, better standardized test scores, and improves student behavior and cooperation. It also reduces vocal strain among teachers. This is just from one of the studies. These results are directly from a study done in New Zealand with 626 students in their 1st to 6th grade year of schooling. The classrooms in the intervention group were fitted with sound field systems. Sound field dramatically improves listening and reading. Significant improvements were noted in the intervention group scores and the PATs, which would be the progressive achievement tests for listening comprehension, reading vocabulary, and mathematics. The findings for this slide, sound field dramatically improved phonological skills. Statistically significant improvements were noted in the intervention group on all 10 subscores, with the improvements by the intervention group greater than that of the control group in all aspects of the test. All children benefit from sound field amplification. This includes children with normal hearing, children with hearing loss, children who are on IEPs, children with behavioral problems, ADHD, and normal hearing children. Teachers also benefit from sound field amplification systems. It causes less stress in the classroom, less vocal fatigue, and all-around classroom harmony. There are grants out there that will support the implementation of sound field amplification in classrooms. PTO, fundraising, and parent involvement are also factors into considering cost. And I just wanted to leave you with good listening conditions are essential to children's auditory development and general learning. Just some references. And that's all.
Thank you, Erica. Could you leave a printed copy of that with our secretary?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Harkins?
Dr. Badams?
I just wanted to comment, as Erica leaves the mic, we actually have a sound field amplification system in use in this building, and we are seeing some really good results from it.
We had a demonstration of that one evening recently on a cold winter night. Everyone was impressed. And I have to say, it's in harmony with what Erica just told us. Are there any other citizens that wish to speak? If so, please approach the podium and you'd have 3 minutes. Next item of business is report of committees and liaisons. Oh, here's a speaker. Just write your name down, sir, and let us know who you are and your address.
Sure. Hope you can read it. I'd like to give you all the Muslim greetings
Could you just state your name, sir?
Sure.
Okay.
Of Assalamu alaikum, which simply means peace be unto you. My name is Michael X. Anderson. I am lived in Erie all my life. I am a proud graduate of the Erie School District class of 1988 Tech Memorial, and I always feel good when I'm going back in the educational environment because this truly is the foundation of greatness for many of our young people. Within the last week or so, I have gone to city council meeting county council meeting, right, I've given each school board, each member of the board a poster here, which is a photo collage of all the gentlemen in the last year or so who have lost their life. And all I'm attempting to do is try to get people to identify the problem correctly, that we have a young adult problem in this region, a great young adult problem. But this is being misdiagnosed as being a teen problem or a kid's problem. And unfortunately, sometimes those of us who are a little older will refer to 20, 22-year-olds, 25-year-olds as being kids. So then people say, oh, we got all these problems, all these teenagers out here. Every one of these young men here lost their life from the hands of another adult. And I didn't come down here to say I got a solution to a problem that's everywhere. That problem, the young adult problem, is in the county region, Corey, Fairview, Girard, Northeast, like it is here in Erie, you know. But unfortunately, you know, you have strategies that have been coming up as far as, you know, should we have a greater teen curfew? Should we be emphasizing these things? And in all actuality, the majority of the young people, they're good. They're trying the best they can to figure out how they want life for themselves, right? And every time a tragedy happens, there's more so an overreaction than a practical reaction, you know. So sometimes you have to put, you know, a face to things, you know. And for me personally, you know, this young man, Rashid Anderson, I watched him grow up. Him and his mother were very close. I love her to death. I love this young man, and it just breaks my heart that he's no longer here. And so what I try to tell young people is that the one thing about life, embrace it. Because we're not guaranteed tomorrow, but unfortunately, you know, we have some young people, some young adults in particular, right, who don't understand the finality when it comes to gunplay, you know. And I was in this building over the weekend at also Wayne Middle School. I utilized your buildings here as far as the MLK basketball showcase. And you know what? Do you know all the good programs that go on a continuum in your buildings? And all it takes is one incident that people want to just say, oh, that's just how it is in every school district. It's oh so bad. And that's a shame. Because I see you guys working very hard, making difficult decisions that people don't always appreciate, but I think we're in the right direction. And just keep doing what you're doing. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Are there any other citizens that wish to address the board this evening? Thank you, Michael. Our next item of business is our committee reports and liaison reports.
Mr. Harkins.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I sincerely apologize. I thought
That's okay. I apologize also because I've just arrived.
Okay.
Laura Bramblett, 31st Street. This is where I was to come. I believe I read on the website that we were discussing tonight about the charter school renewal for the Rise, Erie Rise. And I would like to ask the board to vote no on that. After looking at all the information that was submitted, I don't think that we're getting our money's worth with this school. They've had a couple years to progress with this, and I think after looking at it for a while, a lot of this money isn't being utilized properly. We have the Attorney General looking into it. I think every citizen should really ask about the finances with this school, what they've been doing, and where our tax money's been going. And so with the amount of money that this gentleman's been collecting, the $120,000 a year that I read, just, I don't know. But about 275 children for one school. I kind of compared it just in my mind on the way over with a quick look at what Mr. Badham takes care of 12,000 kids. I don't know, a quick rough estimate for me is about $500,000 a year, what we would be paying Mr. Badhams to. Don't get excited now, Mr. Badhams, please. Don't get excited. We don't want to pay you that much either. But I do think that every citizen should really take a hard look at how much money is going out to the administrators at these charter schools instead of towards the children. because it's really supposed to be about them and not the administrators making that kind of a profit, that kind of money. So I'm asking the board to look at this and vote no on also restructure. I would just like to send those children back to our public schools, and I thank you.
Did you write your name there for us,
I
ma'am?
will do that.
Thank you. For your information and the public's, the fate and future of that school will not be decided this evening. However, in a few minutes on our agenda, there is an item that relates to it that may be of interest, but the absolute fate of the school is not in the balance this evening.
Okay, will we be notified when it is?
Stick around, you'll
Thank you.
find out. Last call for any other citizens. I don't want to be wrong 3 times. And I apologize to those 2 speakers. Are there any committee reports or liaison reports? Angela, did you want to mention the Better Together? Want to?
I would just like to say I appreciate everyone who came out to our Better Together. It was, for me, I felt like it was a successful event. We had quite a few parents come out. We had a nice group of kids who came out, and I appreciate all the vendors and volunteers that donated their time to come out a few weeks ago, and our special guest, Cliff Crosby, who came and spoke to our children. I felt like it went very well. It was very successful, especially for a first-time event, and hopefully, you know, we'll be able to do it again sometime. But yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate everyone who came and everyone who volunteered.
Thank you, Angela. Are there any other board members who have any committee reports or questions, interests? If not, may we have a motion to accept the committee report? Moved by Mr. Casillo, seconded by Mr. Petrunger. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. There is no unfinished business, and we come to the new business. And before we consider a motion to approve it, there's 3 important things to call to everyone's attention. What previously had been item 5.25, that is the charter school question, has been separated and now will be item 7.02 under the separated items, along with that Kelly Services question. So 5.25 is removed from the business before you and now becomes 7.02. And by its removal, every other item numerically shifts forward. So just, Robin, our secretary, will take care of that in the minutes and on paper, but just everyone needs to know that as we vote on this, the numeration of the items shifts by 1 forward because that is yanked out of the mix. Another important thing to know is there was a mistake noticed in the electronic preparation on item 5.49. An incorrect date was submitted for the retirement of Mr. Potosnik?
Yes, and
Potosnik,
since,
Richard Potosnik.
and since everything moved up, it is now 5.48.
All right, this will be 5.48, and instead of the date of March 28th, which is incorrect, the corrected effective date should be March 31st of 14, a difference of 3 days. So if everyone understands those changes, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the new business of the school district, including it and the vocational new business. Is there such a motion? Moved by Mr. Petrunger. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Spiegel. Any discussion of the new business as it now stands corrected? Roll call.
Mr. Brzezinski? Yes. Mr. Casillo? Yes. Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mrs. McNair?
Yes.
Mr. Petrunger?
Yes.
Ms. Shenley?
Yes.
Mr. Spiegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich?
Yes.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes. The next item we would come to is the first of two separated items, and that would be the Kelly Services staffing for substitute teacher positions from July 1st of 2014 through June 31st of 2015. The superintendent had expected and hoped to present some information to us in our committee of the whole meeting earlier this evening, and we didn't get to it. So at some point, we'll need to have a motion to approve this, and probably that should come first. And then along with the discussion, the superintendent has some information to provide with us. So is there someone who would wish to make the motion for that separated item to be approved?
Motion to approve.
Moved by Mr. Brzezinski,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Cassillo. Now, before we allow board discussion, we'll have the superintendent give us the information that he would have done earlier.
Thanks, Mr. Harkins. What we're asking the board to consider is employing the services of Kelly Corporation to actually hire our substitutes and actually function as a placement agency for that purpose. And if I could ask Mrs. Habersky to please come to the podium and just give us a quick rundown of how this will work. And as she works her way down, there are two reasons. We began to look at this as an option when we were facing the employer mandate portion of the Affordable Health Care Act. And in that process, we also reviewed placement rates that we currently have for substitute teachers, and we found that they are distressingly low. And in the process of reviewing possible vendors for this service, Kelly shared with us their pretty remarkable placement rates that they've had in districts as big as Orange County, Florida. And now that we have some local examples of places that have used this service, it became something of great interest to us. And B, if you could enlighten us further, that'd be great.
Sure. I've asked Mr. Sinnott to pass out to you all of our information that we currently have regarding our sub-finder system. And that would be what our fill rate is for the entire year so far. So what you'll receive is what we've had from last year and how we fill our substitutes for teaching and how we fill this past year. And on average, if we took the entire year, our average is about 80 to 85% fill. And what that means is that there are opportunities of 15% where our classrooms are not covered, which means we don't have the substitutes in there. I have asked some of the principals to come forward, Ms. Sutton, Ms. Zagorski. They are the people in the front lines where when a teacher calls in sick or a teacher calls a personal day, we have to make sure that the classrooms are covered. And what happens is when we don't have that fill rate, then our principals are finding ways to make sure that every classroom is covered. So I did ask if they would give you a moment to express their need and desire for the fill rate to increase.
I'm Diane Sutton, and I'm at Wayne, and Mrs. Habersky mentioned 80 to 85% fill rate as a district number, and unfortunately, I don't think we're there with that percentage at Wayne. So sometimes what happens for us is that a substitute accepts a job, and then they check other places in the system, and if something else looks more appealing than a position at Wayne, they go someplace else. And so at the very last minute, sometimes we lose people, and then we have classrooms of children without an adult. And so right now it's our assistant principal, Gina Rulo, who spends multiple minutes a day, sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes in the morning and before she even gets to work, and then 20 to 40 minutes or sometimes 60 minutes trying to make phone calls to substitutes that we know come to our school regularly to say, we've had an emergency. Can you help us out? Can you come to our school today? And so those minutes add up, obviously, day after day. And it's not every day, but it's not once a month either. It's multiple times a week that this happens. And so in the meantime, while we, the administrative team, are kind of running around making those calls, we're asking teachers to leave their positions or to find a different position or help us cover, or we're splitting children, and it's sometimes a little more chaotic than we would like it to be for children who are starting their day. So when Kelly Services says that they have a 90 whatever % fill rate, I think perfect for a number of reasons. First of all, we have children with adults who are there to teach them. Secondly, we in the administrative positions are able to take that off our plate to fill it with more of the educational business that we really want to get to on a really regular basis. So that's one opinion, just an opinion. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them for me specifically.
Anyone? Since this discussion should have taken place sooner, is anybody will treat it like we would have in the other room? Is there any board members?
Mr. President,
Mary?
I do have a question. Mrs. Sutton, do you have school-based substitutes?
We don't have anybody in name, but we do have one person who comes to us very, very regularly, almost daily.
Do you have a person in the school who shows up every day, a school-based substitute, one who is assigned to that school?
Assigned to our, we do not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Although I've moved on from my assistant principal job into the assessment coordinator's job, I did the substitute at Piper Burley last year, and prior to that, I did it for 5 years at Jefferson. And I have to say that I wish we had a fill rate of 80% at Piper Burley last year. It was very difficult, as Diane explained to you, to find people to come to Piper Burley on a daily basis. I learned our sub finder system quite well and tried some different ways of trying to get subs in. I called them personally sometimes, and it was very difficult. And when I hear Kelly Services can have a 98% fill rate on a daily basis, that would be amazing for the children, because that's definitely what we're looking for, is making sure we have a body in there, not just a body, but an educated person that would really help out the children. I subbed a lot last year, and K-8, and I would love to have done my job more often, even though that was one of the ways that we were able to cover those classrooms. So thank you.
As we look at what had happened in the past few years, we had furloughed teachers who were available to come into our buildings and substitute. We are at this point where we need to recruit if we're going to do an in-house, so that we can get a pool, an additional amount of teachers or substitutes that can do that. We would do that in-house, or we would use the service of Kelly. I don't know if you have any questions for us regarding that. Our thought would be that it would be for this coming school year. We would move from the subfinder system to the ASOP system, and that is the system that Kelly uses, and they would be able to support us with implementing that system, which is very similar to subfinder.
Dr. Badams, did you have anything to add, or?
I just would open the, if there are any questions for B or me or Mr. DeAndrio, the savings in this process, again, as I mentioned, this was initially investigated as we were trying to figure out how we were going to cope with the what we projected to be some pretty significant costs associated with the implementation of the Affordable Health Care Plan. In the process, we have determined that for us to do this particular contract for all of our employees would not make financial sense at this point, since that implementation has been deferred. But in the case of our teachers, we feel very confident, based on our financial analysis, that we would save upwards of $200,000 before any savings associated with healthcare down the road. And that's because for our current substitutes, we provide all of the normal salary-related benefits, like our contributions to the PCERS retirement system, unemployment, and those sorts of costs that would be assumed by Kelly Services. Of course, in exchange for that, we pay a premium. So we pay a 39% premium, at least in our initial quote from Kelly, for that, and still net a savings of about $212,000. So for financial reasons as well as for the fill rate reasons, we are interested in entering into an agreement. The duration of the agreement will be a single year, so it'll be a good opportunity for us to see if, in fact, we see those sorts of increases in the fill rate. There are some other considerations in that contract, because Kelly Services would take on the challenge of recruiting more substitutes in order to achieve those fill rates, there would be a premium if we were to hire one of those subs as a full-time teacher. And that premium would not apply to any of our teachers who would convert over to the Kelly system, but it would apply if they were hired by Kelly without having worked here, unless they worked for Kelly for 90 days. At the end of that 90-day period, it's my understanding, based on the proposed contract that I've seen, that fee would be waived. So to me, it looks like a relatively low-risk way for us to save over $200,000, and a way for us to improve the number of classrooms that actually have a certified educator teaching a class, rather than a harried administrator or a teacher who has a duty period or an unassigned period thrust into a classroom for which they've not been prepared.
At the moment, we're in an informational stage, and so any questions the board members might have of Dr. Badams or Ms. Zaberski, they can ask, and then we'll move to the more formal mode where each board member will have 2 opportunities to speak on the motion itself. So is there any specific question any board member has for Ms. Zaberski or Dr. Badams about this? If not, we'll have discussion as we normally would on the motion. That means any board member can have up to 2 opportunities, a total of 10 minutes to express themselves. Anyone?
Mr. President.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Although I have the utmost respect for Dr. Badams and the administration and supported the initiatives that he has recommended to this board in the past, I don't believe in this proposal. I believe the proposed contracting out of these services will add a layer of outside management that will cause confusing situations in the daily workings of the organization. I believe that in the end we would find that this contract would not be as cost-effective as the claims being made. I also feel that the ultimate goal of this proposal is an attempt by us to avoid our responsibility as employers to implement the Affordable Care Act. Although I understand that our complying to this law will be an added burden to us, I believe that the ultimate goal of health care for all of our citizens is something that is very important and will entail sacrifice by employees all over this country. I think it would be wrong for us to set the example of trying to find ways to avoid our responsibility, and for these reasons, I will be voting no.
Is there any other discussion?
Mr. President?
Mr. Casillo?
I have to respectfully disagree. I think that, especially with the information that Dr. Badams brought to the table tonight with a teacher that's enrolled for 60 or 90 days with the services, can transfer to a permanent position if one becomes available at no cost to the district. I believe that it would be behooving to us to be able to have that burn-in period with possibly a teacher that's in a semi-permanent position substituting for a teacher that's on leave, that we can go through our own internal process when the time is such that we are going to hire a permanent employee. I think that the cost saving certainly justifies us moving to the Kelly services to at least in the interest of even as an interim basis to as a cost saving measure to move to that and at such time I think what is it? Is it a 12-month? Is there a 12-month contract? After that 12-month period, we could review it to see the benefits of it. But if we don't give them the ability to try and let us take a look at the numbers, then, it's for naught. But I think we would be kind of cutting ourselves short if we don't give the administration the opportunity to go ahead and do it. And I certainly don't think that it would be creating another layer between the district and our teachers. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Ms. Shenley?
I'm looking at this sub-finder analysis, and unfortunately, it's the first time I've seen it, but I'm looking at it and thinking, 2012 fill rate, East High School, 96.77%. 2013 fill rate, 66.6%. And if you go all the way down the list, you're going to see 2012 compared to 2013, a big drop in 2013. Some schools in 2013 had 100% fill rate. Is this an internal problem? Yes, I think it is. And I have always thought that. I believe in school-based subs. That means that principals used to have a group of subs that they could call in and or allow and say, okay, this teacher is going to be out for a couple of weeks. You know, you need to come in those 2 weeks. This was an opportunity for young people who wanted to be teachers to spread their wings a little bit and try out what it's like to be in a school. It was also an opportunity for them to be recognized for their skills as teachers and have a better opportunity to be employed by the Erie School District and or another school district. I also looked at what Kelly Services provided in local districts. We're an urban school. We have a variety of schools with lots of different problems, certainly far more children in a school than does the county. So I don't think that, I did not take the county recommendations who use Kelly Services. I didn't take that to heart because we're an urban school. We have a unique set of problems as an urban district. And I think that the way SubFinder is set up, it's not a person calling you and saying, could you sub for this school? It's not a principal calling subs that he or she knows and trusts. It's an automated machine that can call you at midnight or can call you at 6 o'clock in the morning. I just think that we're going about the whole finding of subs for our schools the wrong way, and I would prefer a different method. I also know that we've talked over the last 2 or 3 years about what we pay our subs. In some counties, in some of the county schools, they do give them a bonus if they continue to sub for a certain period of time. You know, whether it's 2 months or 3 months, they give them a bonus and they pay more. So I would like, plus the fact that we're actually hiring a person in human resources, the job's been posted for a couple of weeks, that would do SubFinder. So I'm not sure, and in addition to some other duties, it's not a full-time job. So I'm not sure at this point if I'm in favor of the Kelly Services or not. I think that as a district, we could probably do a little bit better than what we're doing right now.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President.
Mr. Spiegel?
I know I'm new to this, but when I look at the numbers, $200,000 is an awful lot of money. I mean, for most people that are sitting here in this room, I think they would all agree that $200,000 would be a windfall if we could get that. If somebody came to me in my business and said, hey, they're going to give me $200,000 worth of savings, there would be very, very little discussion because it's a considerable amount of money. And I still think that our burden is to, of course, educate our children first, but the taxpayer should be certainly considered in every single one of the decisions, certainly financial decisions that we make here. And for me to speak to my neighbors or to whomever else, and they are going to ask me why we didn't save $200,000, I think that's almost irresponsible if we don't do something.
Mr. President?
Mary?
I just want to make sure that we understand that the first time this whole thing came up, there were some, the Affordable Care Act was in question, and the administration presented us with some incredible numbers as to what it would cost us if we didn't go with an outside service. And at the Committee of the Whole meeting last week, All of those numbers changed because there were mistakes made. So the $200,000 savings is a cost estimate, possibly. I think that there are other considerations to be made as far as how and where we find our substitute teachers that are in our classroom teaching our students. Thank you.
Mr. Harkins?
Dr. Badams?
I just want to clarify, the change that we made last week was not a mistake. It was simply that the date had been postponed for implementation of the Affordable Health Care Act, so we subtracted out the healthcare savings. So what was presented to the board last week was based on our previous costs, the retirement contribution and the unemployment compensation contributions, and they were all detailed on that spreadsheet.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President.
Mr. Brzezinski.
As someone who has spent, or had spent many years in a classroom, we can talk about the money savings, which is fantastic, but there never should be a group of children sitting in a classroom without a teacher, and that's happening. So that's a problem that we're trying to solve with Kelly. I'm not totally sold that they're the best outfit out there to do it, but at least it's going to take those situations out of the hands of our assistant principals or counselors, whoever are designated to try to pull in last-minute subs. We have to do something better, and we have 1 year to find out if Kelly actually is the outfit that's going to do it for us. So I'm in favor of it.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President?
Mr. Fabrizi.
Well, the first thing that I'd just like to say that is, as far as the fill rates, when it talks about the fill rates, I understand that the promises being made by Kelly Services, but like Ms. Shenley said, they may be promises when they're talking about urban school districts and that type of thing. The problem that one of our principals brought up was that the problem that you have with getting subs that show up is they find out that they're going to Wayne School. They don't want to go to Wayne School for whatever reason. So, I mean, there's a difference in that. As far as Mr. Spiegel, and I respect Mr. Spiegel's opinion, as a businessman, he said that if anybody came to him and said they could save him $200,000, then it would be a no-brainer. And I understand that mentality, but you also have vendors that come to you on a regular basis. They all tell you what they're going to do for you. It doesn't always come to fruition. And that's what I've seen over the years at the school district, seeing us getting involved in things and companies coming to us and telling us they're going to solve this problem for us. We didn't initiate this because we had a problem filling subs. That was not what this was brought to us for. This was brought to us for us to find a way to circumvent the Affordable Care Act. And I don't believe in that myself. I mean, that's what I'm saying. So that's how it was brought to us. Now, if we're going to find reasons why it would be a good idea, sure, they have come up with reasons when they're talking about the fill rates. But I'm just not buying anything that comes walking in and saying this is the way it's going to be, because I've seen it too many times, and that's just how I feel about it. Thank you.
Mr. Harkins?
Dr. Badams.
I guess, and again, this is exactly why I wanted to have this discussion and have it publicly. But the fill rates that have been brought to us as examples that the Kelly Service brought were based on national figures in other districts. And we'll never know. We can be suspicious that the numbers aren't accurate or that they won't apply to us, but we'll never know if we don't try it. So that's why I'm urging the board to consider this. And again, it's a 1-year agreement. So even if it's 87%, we're better off than we are now. We have way too many buildings. If you look through these numbers, each page represents a different month. So if you look at the totals on each one, in some cases we've filled more this year than we did last year, but in most cases we've filled significantly less. And in some months it's been particularly problematic. But if there's even one classroom where there's not a responsible adult in charge, or if there's a classroom where a teacher has been taken away from what they're supposed to be doing so that they can cover a classroom, it's a headache for everybody. The teacher, the administrator, the child. And so, again, we absolutely have no way of knowing for sure what our fill rate will be if we were to do this. But we'll never know if we don't try it. So I'm simply asking the board to allow us to try this for a year and see if in fact the claims are true. There are a number of districts right now throughout the county, though not urban, who are doing this, which creates a large pool of potential substitutes. One thing that substitutes that are on our list have the freedom to do is to say no. And I don't know if this to be true, but if I'm an employee of Kelly Services and I'm given an assignment, I would assume that I am to take that assignment to continue my employment. I don't know if that's a fact. We could certainly find that out. But Warren, Girard, Mill Creek, I think that's it so far. Warren, Mill Creek, Girard, Corey also, are all using Kelly Services to provide their substitutes. So not that those districts are the same as ours, but as far as the service, they're using it, and we'll have other peers to compare notes with.
Any other discussion? For clarity, yes, Mr. Cassillo?
Just one last thing. I don't really need to remind this board that we're still facing a $4 million deficit that we're working to try to offset. If you could save half of that $200,000, it's a move in the right direction that we have to make, even if it's for a 12-month period. And maybe next year we won't be in a position where we would need to do this. But it's not about money, it's about our children. It's about filling the classroom with teachers and not leaving classrooms vacant. That's what it's about. And if they can give us anywhere near a 90% fill rate, that's tremendous. That's considerably higher than any of the numbers that you could see here that have been given to us by Mrs. Zabriskie tonight. So I'm absolutely in favor of giving our Kelly Services a try. Thank you.
For clarity, a yes vote will hire Kelly Services for 1 year, and a no vote rejects. A yes vote means to proceed with Kelly Services to provide the service. A no vote stops it. Has everyone got that? Roll call.
Mr. Brzezinski.
Yes.
Mr. Cassillo.
Yes.
Mr. Fabrizi.
No.
Mrs. McNair. No. Mr. Petrunger.
No.
Ms. Shenley.
No.
Mr. Spiegel.
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich.
No.
Mr. Harkins.
Yes. I believe the motion failed.
Passed 5-4.
No, failed.
Failed 5-4.
5-4.
Failed by one. Okay.
Failed?
The next item of business is the previously item 525. That is,
What was your vote? Yes or no?
are you asking me, sir?
Yeah.
My vote was yes to approve.
That's 5.
Not by my count.
We'll count again.
Well, no, I don't have to
Brzezinski,
count it
Cassillo,
again.
Spiegel.
And me.
and
Thank you.
Angela was yes too, weren't you?
No.
No, she said no.
No, the vote was 5-4, no.
Okay.
As I was saying, the next item of business is the consideration of the non-renewal notice for the charter school, which previously had been 5.25. I'd call upon, well, first we should have a motion. Do we have a motion? Order, please. Do we have a motion to approve the notice of non-renewal for the charter school for the Erie Rise Leadership Academy attached electronically to the agenda? Is there such a motion? Moved by Mr. Petrunger. Is there a second? Motion's going to fail for lack of a second. Is there a second? Mr. Spiegel seconded it. Now, prior to board discussion, I'd call upon Solicitor Tim Sennett to explain the ramifications of the resolution before us.
I think it's important for the board and the public to understand the process which you are obligated to go through in regard to a renewal or non-renewal of a charter school. And if you'll recall, and as the board is aware, the Erie Rise Leadership Academy Charter School submitted an application to you 3 years ago. And 3 years ago, you approved their charter. And in that application, they set forth their plan for the school. It wasn't a plan that we established. It is the plan that was established by the charter school, submitted to you for approval, and you did approve it 3 years ago. Under the statute, under the public school code, the charter was only allowed to continue for a period of 3 years. And then after that 3 years, the charter either has to be renewed or not renewed. The charter school, in accordance with the charter school law, submitted a notice or request for the charter to be renewed. What happens then is that you have an obligation to begin an investigation of their charter to determine whether or not it should be renewed. And based on that request, we, the school district, then did proceed forward with an investigation. That investigation included Dr. Badams actually taking a walk through the school itself, viewing the education going on in the school. It also included several pieces of correspondence sent to the charter school requesting all types of documentation and information provided to the school district from the charter school. So everything was provided to us from the charter school, and that is the basis of the investigation. Based on that investigation, if you find from the information provided by the charter school that there are concerns or grounds for which the charter school should not be renewed, then you have to follow a process that we're talking about tonight, which is the non-renewal process. If you do that investigation and find no grounds or concerns, then you go automatically to renewal. In this situation, we found several bases or grounds for which of concern in regard to the operation of the charter school. And so if we find these grounds, the procedure you must follow as set forth by the statute is to initially send out a notice to the charter school advising that we found these things that are wrong with your charter school, and give the charter school an opportunity then to have a public hearing in regard to those grounds. So what this notice does then is A, provide the charter school with the grounds that we found that are a matter of concern in regard to their operation of their school. And B, what the notice does is set up a hearing date, which would be May 7th at 6:30 here at East High School, for the school district to review all those grounds, to provide you as the board members the information that we found that they gave us that results in the concerns about their operations. And then it also, at that hearing, gives the charter school an opportunity to come before you and provide additional information or response to those grounds. If there's something they failed to give us initially and they want to give it at the time of the hearing, then they'll present that. If there's other information they want to provide to us, you will hear that. So you'll then, at that hearing, gather all the information in regard to those concerns or grounds for non-renewal. And then, at the end of the hearing will close. Then, under the charter school law, you're required to have a 30-day public comment period in which members of the public can write to you or provide additional public comment about the charter school for a period of 30 days. After that 30-day public comment period, then we will have another public board meeting in which at that time you will make a decision as to whether or not to renew the charter or not renew the charter. And at that public meeting, you will consider all the information that we provided as part of the grounds. You will consider all the information the charter school provided. You will consider all the public comment that you received. And based on all that information, only then can you make a decision as to whether to renew or not renew the charter school. So that is the overall process. And that is the process we're trying to follow. And that is not a process that you created. That is a process that has been set forth in the public school code that you're mandated to follow. In regard to the grounds themselves, based on our investigation and based on the information provided to us by the charter school, we didn't make this stuff up. We asked for certain documentation. They provided it to us. Dr. Badams did a walkthrough and looked at the educational program they were providing. And we have found the following things, the following concerns, the following grounds. Number one, as part of the application that they submitted to you 3 years ago, they identified 3 major elements of their charter school design. One of those major elements was a gender-specific model. The second one was smaller class size. They wanted it to be unique. If you remember, charter schools have to be unique. One of the things they promoted as being a unique part of their school was smaller class size. And in the testimony and in the application, they indicated the smaller class sizes would be 18 students within a class. Based on the information that we found and that they gave us as to their enrollment, there are 8 classrooms that have over 18 students. So they are not following their own plan. Kindergarten, they have 26 students in one class, 33 students in another. First grade, they have 23 students in one class, 23 students in the other class. Second grade, they have 25 students in one class, they have 25 students in the other class. Third grade, they have 15 students and 13 students, so they're okay on those 2 classes. Fourth grade, they have 27 students in one class and 22 students in another class. Fifth grade, they have 10 students and then 18 students. Sixth grade, 10 students and 18 students. So not all the classes are a violation of their own plan, but 8 of them are. So, and this is their plan, not something we created. This is their own plan. So obviously, they have to follow their own plan. They have to follow their own charter. They're not doing it. Second issue is the Sunshine Act. You, as a public board, have to comply with the Sunshine Act. That means you have to advertise your public meetings. They, as a public school and a public school board, as a charter public school board, also have to comply with the Sunshine Act and advertise their meetings. And they have failed to do that for a significant number of public meetings. They have to comply with the Pennsylvania Public School Code in regard to suspensions and expulsions. And they have to, as you know, you have to expel a student if that student carries a weapon into school, or unless the superintendent makes a recommendation and you take some board action that allows that student not to be expelled for that 1 year period of time based on a weapon. There's nothing, they had several of those situations in which they suspended the child for less than the 1 year period. In fact, they only did 10 days. There is nothing in their public records that indicates they follow the charter, or they follow the public school code in regard to those situations. There was nothing in the record that indicates there was some recommendation by the principal or the executive director of the school, and there was nothing in there indicating that there was some board action that allowed that to happen. They are obligated as a charter school to provide the school district with an annual report on a yearly basis, and they're required by the charter school law to submit that to you on August 1st. It is a statutory deadline. They have failed to meet that deadline almost every year that they've been in existence. Employment clearances. They are required to get the necessary background checks and clearances prior to hiring or within 90 days of hiring their employees. They have violated that statute. They did not get their clearances within the appropriate period of time, and it is a significant number of employees in which they have failed to do that. You, as board members, have to comply with the Pennsylvania Public Employees Officials Ethics Act, which requires you to complete appropriate statements of financial interest. And you do that on a regular basis, and you have to submit it on a yearly basis. Unfortunately, several members of their board failed to do that or failed to do it correctly. It's a violation of the Ethics Act. School health services, they were required to submit a school health annual request for reimbursement report to the Pennsylvania Department of Health, Division of School Health, no later than September 30th of 2013. School Health, Pennsylvania Department of Health, Divisions of School Health submitted and sent the superintendent a letter saying that the Erie Rise didn't do it. And they had sent a reminder letter to have them submit the report, and they still didn't do it. And so they're violating that section. In their charter school plan, they identified this elaborate technology plan that they were going to implement at the school. Although they set forth it in great detail, they have not complied with their own plan, their own charter. It's not in place, and it's been 3 years. As part of the heart of their charter, they indicated that they were going to have individualized purpose plans for each student. So each student would basically have a plan for that student, and that student would follow the plan. And this was to the heart, again, of their charter proposal that they submitted to you, which you approved. And unfortunately, they're not following, again, their own plan. We asked for every plan for every student in the school. And in grade 1, which contains 46 students, there were only 26 plans. In grade 3, 28 students, there were only 7 plans. In grade 4, 49 students, only 20 plans. And it continues. Employee wages, they're not complying with the law in regard to employee wages. They've required their employees to attend Saturday school days and work hours beyond the established employment hours, but failed to pay their employees. Title I funds, they received Title I funds. There's a concern that they did not have any Title I programming in place for the funds they received. Spanish, as part of their plan, they indicated they were going to teach Spanish. We have information that indicates that they're not complying with their own plan in regard to teaching Spanish. Truancy, they're required to take appropriate action in regard to truant students. They fail, and one of those steps is to notify the school district in regard to the truant students, because it is your obligation to follow through on truant students. They have failed to provide any type of notification to the school district in regard to truant students. Those were the findings that the school district made as a result of our investigation into the charter school. In addition, as you're aware, and as the press has indicated, at the same time we were investigating the charter school, the Pennsylvania Auditor General was also investigating the charter school because of concerns that were raised. And they have made some findings which we incorporate into the notice. That includes that they had no board oversight of their chief executive officer or financial consultant company. You, as board members, are aware you have to review and make sure that your superintendent is complying with the law, and you double check that, and you review that. Same thing with your financial officers. That is your responsibility. That is your duty. In this situation, they delegated the responsibility to an outside third-party consultant in regard to the financial manager, and they did not review anything he was doing in regard to paying bills, paying tuitions, submitting budgets, et cetera, et cetera. They did not review what they were doing in regard to vendor contracts. They did not review what the CEO or the third party was doing in regard to federal programs. They did not review the hiring or firing or the payroll system in place in regard to their employees. In addition, the Auditor General has found that basically that the board delegated the charter school operations to the CEO and a for-profit financial company without proper maintenance of control of the operation. In addition, the Auditor General raised concerns about their academic performance of the school. The Auditor General raised concerns about the high turnover in key academic leadership positions. They employed 4 different principals over the period of 3 years. They failed to follow their own local auditors' recommendations in regard to management of their financial affairs. They failed to operate their own charter in accordance, operate their school in accordance with their own charter. As I indicated, the Auditor General also found that the teacher-student ratios were not consistent with their own plan. The Auditor General found that they had combined classrooms, which was not part of their plan, and that they had offered school on Saturday. The Auditor General indicated that they lacked some basic documentation, which was necessary, including payroll records, certification records, clearances, vendors' contracts, student enrollment data, student registration data, statements of financial interest, and we found some of the same. Overall, the grounds that we have raised both as part of our application and as part of our, as part of our investigation and as part of the investigation by the Auditor General does result in the concerns. And a non-renewal can only happen if some of those concerns meet certain criteria. So you have to look at the criteria of the charter school. One is, has the charter school violated its own charter? Is that a concern that we saw? And the answer was yes. Has the charter school violated the charter school law? Based on the concerns we found, the answer was yes. Has the charter school violated the Pennsylvania Public School Code? Again, the answer to that is yes. Has the charter school violated the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act? The answer to that question is yes. Has the charter school violated the Pennsylvania Public Official Employees Ethics Act? The answer to that question is yes. Has the charter school violated the Department of Education regulations? The answer again is yes. Has the charter school violated federal law? The answer to that question is yes. Has the charter school failed to meet certain performance standards or targets? And the answer to that question is yes. And has the charter school failed to generally meet accepted fiscal standards or audit requirements? And again, the answer is yes. So every one of the criteria for which a non-renewal is applicable, we have found grounds or concerns that you should consider before you make your decision. So based on all this information, I believe that it is necessary for the board to issue the notice of non-renewal. That will give you the opportunity to hear all the information concerning these issues. It will give the charter school the opportunity to give you information from their viewpoint, whether they did this or not, whether they forgot to give us some information, whether they have found new information that would help them. And then ultimately it'll allow the public to provide you some comment in regard to the charter school. So my recommendation as your counsel is that you approve the notice of non-renewal, because based on the investigation that's been conducted, we do have concerns about how they're running the school.
So for clarity, the question before the board is, shall we vote to submit this notice of non-renewal, thereby setting in motion the process which the solicitor just described for the reasons he explained? So if the majority of board members vote yes, that will happen. If not, it will not. So if everyone understands that, is there any other discussion from board members? If not, roll call.
Mr. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Cassillo? Yes. Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mrs. McNair? Yes. Mr. Petrunger?
Yes.
Ms. Shenley? Yes. Mr. Spiegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Yes. Mr. Harkins?
Yes, motion carried. Next item is approval of minutes for March 3rd and 19th of 2014. You have them before you. Is there a motion to approve them?
So be it.
Moved by Mr. Petrunger. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Angela? Mary? by Mrs. Shenley. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. The bills and payrolls are before you for approval for payment. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Shenley, seconded by Mr. Petrunger. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Brzezinski? Mr. Cassillo?
He stepped out.
Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Petrunger?
Yes.
Ms. Shenley?
Yes.
Mr. Spiegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich?
Yes.
And Mr. Harkins?
Yes. Now the report of the superintendent. Dr. Badams?
Thanks, Mr. Harkins. Right now, this is the last month we have before we'll have a number of budget issues that will come to the fore. In the month of May, we're required by law to present our proposed final budget. That's toward the end of May. And then ultimately we'll pass a budget somewhere in the neighborhood of June 30th of this year. So between now and then, we have a lot of work still to do. The district finds itself right now about $4.2 million out of balance. We certainly are waiting for more information from Harrisburg as they continue to negotiate on a variety of topics that will have a lot to do with what we ultimately receive from Harrisburg. But in the meantime, we can expect to have to do what we've done over the course of the past 3 years, and that is cut our way to a balanced budget. We'll continue to look for ways to do that. It's becoming increasingly difficult because we've cut to the bone as it is already. We've cut administratively, we've cut in our non-instructional areas, we've cut in our teaching ranks, and we have cut across the board in terms of services and everything else. When you review our financials, you'll see that trend clearly. So we'll need continued effort between now and then to actually find a way to close that gap. I am disappointed in the vote tonight on Kelly Services because that was one way we were going to close that gap by a significant amount. However, we'll go back. We have a meeting tomorrow with the administrative staff devoted solely to this effort. And I've asked everybody to cut 2.5%, which is the amount that we're out of balance from every budget, and find ways to do that. It may mean reduce services in some areas. It may mean people are going to be doing more work with less time. On a happy note, we actually have received some good news this week. In fact, just yesterday, we found out that we finally, after applying for several years, have received the Carol White Physical Fitness and Wellness Grant to the tune of $582,000 over a 3-year period, which is great news. And I owe a special debt of gratitude to Ms. Pam Wiley from Collegiate Academy, who has spearheaded this effort, assisted by Laura Salmonson in procuring the grant. The other thing we did was, as a county, we were successful in obtaining a $100,000 grant from the Erie Community Foundation for a program called Win Learning. Mr. Punt will be helping us in our district to implement this, and it's a great software tool for our high school students to use for career exploration, but also for career assessment, so that students will not only have a way to look into things that they might do later after high school, but we'll also find out where they stand with regard to key skills that they'll need in order to work in those occupations that they find interesting. So that's more great news. We'll continue. We will have obviously a number of meetings coming up over the course of the next month based on the vote to send a notice of non-renewal. We will have public hearings. We'll have a committee meeting coming up early in May, and then at the end of May, it's our expectation that we'll have a meeting to approve the budget. Somewhere in between there, we'll have other opportunities to meet as a board to discuss our efforts on the budget. So with that, I conclude my report.
Any questions or comments on the superintendent report? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Did we, I don't want to be lax, did we have a motion? It was, all right, I thought I recalled, Mr. Is there a motion to accept the report of the superintendent?
So be it.
Mr.
Second.
Petrunger, moved by Mr. Petrunger, seconded by Mrs. Shenley. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carried. Next is the report of the secretary. You have it before you. What is your wish? Is there a move to approve it?
Yes, so be it.
Moved by Mr. Petrunger. Anyone? Seconded by Mrs. Shenley. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Brzezinski? Mr. Casillo? Mr. Fabrizi?
Yes.
Mrs. McNair? Mr. Petrunger?
Yes.
Ms. Shenley? Yes. Mr. Spiegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Alexandrovich? Mr. Harkins?
Yes. We have no bids to act on this evening, so the next item will be any other matter which any board member wishes to bring to our attention this evening. Is there anyone? May we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Shenley, seconded by Mr. Petrunger. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, meeting adjourned.
Good to see you.